Well, another year has come and gone, and it's now time for what is fast becoming one of my favorite annual videos, which is not titled the top or best films of the year, but rather my favorite films of the year, which I highlight now because there may appear on this list films that I actually gave lower ratings to as compared to others. Nonetheless, these are the films that engaged, excited, and inspired me most in 2016, and I cannot wait to discuss them. So let's dive on in. Being that I spend a good chunk of my life just obsessing over film, it really has become nearly impossible for me to walk into a theater having no idea what I'm about to watch, especially since the advent of the internet. So that J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot could so successfully, for so long, fly under my radar, this sequel to 2008's Cloverfield was just a treat. And with rumors of a conventional sequel floating around since the original's release, it was even more of a delight to discover that they opted to make this an anthology series instead, keeping the experience even mysterious in the viewing. And the surprises just didn't stop coming, the narrative constantly altering course. And paramount to a film like that, full of twists and turns, is ensuring that the audience doesn't merely feel manipulated in the process, because on one hand, conceiving of a surprising revelation isn't all that difficult. The real challenge is conceiving one that, when made, suddenly feels completely inevitable to the viewer. A discovery that they are immediately confident they would have figured out given just a few more minutes. And I am compelled to mention just how good John Goodman was in this film as well, really standing as this perfect paradigm for this film's expertly balanced tone, able to, with great success, play dark and creepy, and then seamlessly transition to comedic and quirky, making what could have become an overbearing, uncomfortable, even oppressive experience into a very enjoyable genre piece. This is a prime example of this list featuring my favorite films of the year versus the best, because I freely admit that Kubo and the Two Strings had the most impressive looking animation and Moana the most memorable soundtrack, but no animated film connected with me quite like Zootopia did. Just the fact that I could find a cute bunny and sly fox so relatable and empathetic really was a testament to the level of filmmaking on display, an empathy that was so wonderfully earned through imaginative sequence after imaginative sequence, each of them taking me on this endlessly fun journey through this bustling and brilliant mammal-filled metropolis. I still smile anytime that I think about the DMV sloths or the Godfather shrews. And as compared to another animated animal-filled film this year, and no, I am not referring to Finding Dory, Zootopia crafted each of the sequences to not only be unique and fun, but also perfectly cohesive and interlocked with the rest of the film. But really what impressed me most about this film was the writers and directors' ability to craft a lead character in Judy Hopps who was both quintessentially Disney, possessing that optimistic, you can do anything you set your mind to attitude, while at the same time containing levels of maturity that added surprising nuance and depth that didn't just play to what viewers wanted to hear, but what viewers needed to hear. And though this film's metaphor, if examined closely enough, really did come apart, I think it's important to keep in mind two things. One, this metaphor's intended design was to present important, difficult-to-discuss topics to young, impressionable minds, which was great. And two, it was a metaphor in a film, and should neither be expected to perfectly align with reality or solve the world's problems. And so I, for one, enjoyed the metaphor and loved the film. Last year it was Spike Lee's Chirac, and this year it was Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert's Swiss Army Man. Films that, in such enviable ways, triumphantly presented their stories with cinematic vocabulary so akin to my own, expressively and dynamically weaving together music, light, and color to capture the rhythm that pounds within each of our souls, which felt so appropriate for a story that examined the physical, mental, and emotional maturation that happens within all of us from birth to adulthood. And really, whether I ultimately agreed with the filmmaker's worldview or not, their writing and direction was so unapologetically bizarre, I couldn't not be captivated as I watched unfold this truly one-of-a-kind story about a physically dead man bringing to life someone who, for so long, had been emotionally deceased. And just like the farts that filled this film, even in the moments that it was just plain awkward and weird, it also had this unfailing ability to always make me smile. Sing Street continued to explore the often confusing mess that is growing up, using music in its own distinct way. With such exuberance for life and optimism for love, it captured those formative years when we find ourselves like pendulums swinging from one extreme to the other, aspiring to be one thing one moment and then longing to be another the next. And as I mentioned, Sing Street really wonderfully illustrated those changes through music. The lead character cycling through genre after genre as to find who he truly was, and of course, to win the affections of a girl. Which certainly was a plotline that we've seen a dozen different times, if not more, but rarely done with that much creativity and heart. Its action sequences were rousing, yes, its characters colorful, each of them, its plotlines numerous and focused simultaneously, and its themes relevant and challenging, definitely. But more impressive than all of that, what this third Captain America film accomplished in the midst of all those action sequences, characters, plotlines, and themes was telling a story that lived up to its title, which wasn't Avengers: Civil War. This was a Captain America film through and through, satisfyingly told from Steve Rogers' perspective. And for such a massive film, that really was astounding. Furthermore, as was true with the first Avenger and then the Winter Soldier, what Marvel Studios continued to do was take a character that could have easily become an extremely boring goody two-shoes and shape him into an extremely believable, empathetic human being with fears and flaws. And what Joe and Anthony Russo were able to do with their first two outings at Marvel, and I'm hoping will continue to be able to do with their next two films, was masterfully balance innumerable studio mandates, include this character, introduce this item, present this backstory, conclude that plotline, with their own personal styles, tastes, and passions. It was just nothing short of joyous to discover that a mega-budget blockbuster from a studio that, for better and for worse, has a formula, actually possessed moment after moment of fresh, exuberant, and brave filmmaking. Let's pause and spend a quiet scene with Vision and Scarlet Witch just cooking together. Let's punctuate this otherwise cliché romantic moment with these faces. Let's allow a brilliant actor like Martin Freeman to infuse his plot device of a character with some real personality. Let's play Spider-Man's involvement in the airport fight as light as it actually would be, a teenage kid being thrown into a war in which he has no personal stakes. And let's end the film in a place that still feels appropriately raw and unresolved. This film had its own story to tell and patiently refused to become the first act of the next one, and I, for one, could not have been more pleased with it. Your likely confusion or just plain annoyance that I've included a 65-minute long music video on this list is certainly understandable. But sincerely, I don't think that any other film this year rivaled the pure cinema on display in Beyonce's Lemonade. Her journey of discovering and then responding to her husband's infidelity was expressed in such undiluted visual and auditory ways, to the extent that I felt like I'd stumbled not just upon a woman's very personal diary, I'd actually fallen into her mind, experiencing the black of her despair, the red of her anger, the white of her grace, and the gold of her joy, all the while hearing the music of her heart, which so clearly rang out all that she'd felt during that trying time in her life. If Terrence Malick was to direct a Beyonce music video, this is what it would look like, and let me tell you guys, it was enthralling. In a world that so desperately wants to proclaim, I know what I'm doing, I have purpose, I have direction, here is my assurance, and here is my confidence, silence dared to whisper, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have direction. I've lost my purpose. Where is my assurance? Is there any reason for confidence? Why is any of this happening at all? And this film's willingness to, time and again, fall to its knees and humbly speak those sentiments really was what attracted me to it most. And then it came from such an accomplished, prolific filmmaker who has, over the last 50 years, really successfully jumped from one genre to the next. I could not have been more pleased with Martin Scorsese's willingness to not only challenge his faith, but stretch his filmmaking style as well. Because this film's style just demanded to stand in complete contrast to Scorsese's previous film, The Wolf of Wall Street. And so the director director traded in that film's frenetic pace and clamor for a style that was completely ruled by stillness and silence, visually and auditorially muffling and dimming with elements like fog and rain, and editorially slowing with these long takes, all of which drew us into the lead characters' minds, helping us to understand their struggle. And in the end, most impressive of all, this film managed to be the paradox that it needed to be, whispering that assurance and confidence can only ever be truly grasped in the letting go of our strivings and the accepting of grace freely given. Hell or High Water really snuck up on me this year. Watching the trailers, it really didn't seem like much more than your run-of-the-mill bank heist film, with these two modern-day cowboys running around knocking over bank after bank. And to be fair, in a nutshell, that really was the film. But not only was that straightforward narrative masterfully executed, numerous times calling to mind in its gorgeous visuals, chilling tone, and patient pacing a film as brilliant as No Country for Old Men, but its slow push past that stereotypical story to a much more thought-provoking narrative was captivating. Like 10 Cloverfield Lane, this film constantly kept me guessing, never going for the easy answer or predictable turn, and integral to that was not only the now Oscar-nominated Jeff Bridges, but also Ben Foster and Chris Pine, each of them so instrumental in making the story's evolution believable and thoroughly engaging. Like the film itself, they were constantly surprising and evolving, ultimately forcing me to dump my initial judgments of them. And for a film to have one character with that much empathetic growth is a gift. But to have three is an absolute triumph. And really, when it came to intensity, suspense, and stakes, this year, no big-budget action sequence felt quite as well crafted as those found in this film, each of them building upon the one previous, incrementally growing the sense of dread to this fever pitch. And though I'd never actually want to join a pair of bank robbers like those found in this film, during its runtime, they had me in their grip, and I was excitedly along for the ride. Arrival really was one of those wonderful film-going experiences that got better with age, really sticking with me as I walked out of the theater and genuinely improving the more that I thought about it. And Arrival was indeed a thinker, pushing me to ponder my place in the universe, my relationship with the rest of humanity, and my connections to those that are directly in front of me. And director Denis Villeneuve accomplished all of this in extremely risky ways, crafting a film that, in every aspect, was quiet, subdued, subtle, and slow, only occasionally giving me a flash of external urgency. But in success, what that approach added to the film was invaluable, encouraging me to take more stock in each scene, to invest further in every nuance, every blink, every breath, every word, and marvel all the more at the gorgeous imagery set before me. And only after it had spent most of its running time patiently getting me to invest in the narrative cerebrally, only then did it pull at its big guns and get me to invest in it emotionally, making my view of the whole powerfully satisfying. When a film has received as much praise and accolades and love as La La Land, I personally just feel the need to really double down and focus in on why I personally love it, ensuring that my reasoning isn't merely a string of fresh review thumbnails from Rotten Tomatoes. Of course, I could easily point to the film's artistry, from Gosling and Stone's performances in chemistry, to Sandgren's sweeping cinematography, to Cross's pulsing editing, to Chazelle's commanding direction. Or I could focus in on the clear blood, sweat, and tears poured in to this film. Every dance number danced, every song sung, every set dressed, and every scene played with such palpable effort and dedication. Or I could light on the film's downright magical ability to so cohesively mix the style and tone of a heightened musical with the earnest groundedness of a drama. But after much thought, I really think more than anything, the reason that I adore La La Land as much as I do was because I saw what the film was attempting to do narratively and thematically. I really think that it wanted me to, more than anything, reconsider. Ryan Gosling's Sebastian asked me to reconsider the youth and vigor of jazz. Emma Stone's Mia asked me to reconsider the depth and heart of a starving actress. The film's music, color, and tone asked me to reconsider the relevance of an old-fashioned musical in a modern-day setting. And the story's ending asked me to reconsider the worth of any of life's seasons, and that perhaps their value isn't always contingent upon a picture-perfect ending, but rather a journey well-lived. And honestly, that's really what I hope any film that I watch will do, that it will just till the soil of my soul, opening me up to not only consider its ideas, themes and messages, but just better assess any that I encounter either on the big screen or in my day-to-day life. And thus concludes my 10 favorite film list of 2016. But the best part about these lists is that we all have different ones, and I would love to hear yours, so definitely comment below and let me know. And finally, please do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review films and television on this channel, and I would love for you to stay up to date on all of those things. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.